I love my wife. So, while she was on a business trip, our kids and I decided to surprise her by flying to see her. But after, I learned that some surprises are only sweet for one side. The idea had hit me like a lightning bolt at breakfast. Lily was poking at her cereal, and Jake was already half checked out, lost in whatever game he had on his phone. Emily had been gone for 3 days, another 4 to go. 7 in total. Way too long. Hey, what if we went to see Mom? I said, setting down my coffee. Lily's eyes went huge. Like, just show up? Yeah. We can book flights today, be there tonight. Imagine her face. Jake finally looked up. That'd be kind of cool. Which, from a 13-year-old, meant he was actually excited. I took that and ran with it. Within hours, we were packed. Tickets booked. Excitement buzzing in the air like static electricity. I could already picture it. Emily opening her hotel room door, gasping in shock before pulling us all into a hug, maybe even tears. We hadn't had a moment like that in years. But something small gnawed at me. Emily hadn't picked up when I called that morning. Not unusual. I texted, "Me, hey, hope work's going okay. Just wanted to hear your voice." No response. Me, an hour later, "Kids miss you. Call when you can." Still nothing. A little weird. But work trips got hectic. I brushed it off. We landed in Chicago that evening. The air was thick with city energy. Horns honking, lights flashing. A crisp smell of downtown streets. The kids were buzzing. I rented a car, loaded them in, and put the hotel address into my GPS. As I drove, my pulse picked up. I had told myself I wouldn't call Emily before we got there. I wanted it to be a pure surprise. But now, something in me itched. A bad itch. I hit dial. No answer. I glanced at the time. 9:43 p.m. Not that late. Maybe she was actually busy, or asleep early. 5 minutes from the hotel, I tried again. Straight to voicemail. That itch was clawing now. Jake and Lily were laughing about something in the back seat. Totally unaware of the way my grip had tightened on the wheel. When we finally pulled into the hotel's front entrance, my heart was hammering for no good reason. I told the kids to wait in the lobby while I got our own room keys. "We're gonna jump out at her, right?" Lily asked, bouncing on her toes. "Yeah," I said, but my voice came out tight. I walked to the check-in desk, forced a smile. "Hey, my wife is staying here. Emily Carter. I wanted to surprise her. Could you tell me her room number?" The receptionist smiled politely. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out guest room numbers." "Right? Of course." I slid my credit card over. "Could you at least call up and tell her her husband's here?" She nodded and picked up the phone. I watched her dial. Wait, then her expression shifted. "Oh," she said. Her eyes flickered to me. "She's not answering." My stomach twisted. "Maybe she's asleep," I offered. Because what was the other option? That she was ignoring the call? The woman hesitated, then glanced at her computer screen. "It does say she checked in with a +1 though." +1? My vision tunneled. "Sorry, what?" My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. She blinked. Yeah, the room is under her name. But she listed an additional guest. "I just thought you knew." I stared at her, and then I laughed. Just laughed. Because what else do you do when you realize the mother of your children, the woman you flew across the country to surprise, booked a romantic hotel stay with someone else? My laugh must have unsettled the receptionist because she immediately looked nervous. I wasn't even angry yet. I was in that weird space right before the explosion, where everything is too quiet inside your own head. "Sir?" she asked cautiously. "Who's the +1?" I asked, my voice steady. Too steady. She hesitated. "I can't disclose that information." I exhaled slowly through my nose. "Right. Hey. Then I need a room." Her fingers flew over the keyboard. I could see she was trying not to make eye contact. She knew. She knew exactly what kind of situation this was. A minute later, I had a room key in my hand. Same floor as Emily's. Just a few doors down. Perfect. I walked back to the lobby, forcing my face into something that wouldn't freak out my kids. "We're all set," I said, plastering on a smile. "Let's go drop our stuff off first." Lily was practically skipping next to me. "Can we see Mommy right away?" "Soon," I promised. We rode the elevator up. Jake was glued to his phone. Lily was humming some cartoon theme song. They had no idea. Our room was nice, clean, unremarkable, but I barely saw it. I told the kids to get comfy, order whatever they wanted from room service, and then I stepped into the hallway. Emily's room was 4 doors down. I walked there slowly, my pulse throbbing in my ears. What was I about to see? A work friend crashing in her room? A perfectly innocent explanation? Or something else? I reached her door. Room 814. My hand hovered over the door for a second. Then I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. I knew she was in there. I could feel it. I pulled out my phone and texted her. Hey, I'm at your hotel. Open the door. Read. No reply. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Then, before I could overthink it, I turned on my heel and marched back downstairs. The receptionist looked surprised to see me again. Hey, I said, sliding my room key across the counter. I locked myself out. Can I get a new one? She nodded, started clicking away at her keyboard. And then I said casually, oh, and could you add my wife's room to my key? We always do that when she travels. Just in case. I smiled like a man who wasn't about to burn down his entire marriage. She hesitated. Then, beep, she swiped my card, tapped a few more keys, and handed it back. All set, she said. Thanks, I replied. And then I walked back upstairs to see for myself. My feet felt numb as I walked back to Emily's room. The key card was burning a hole in my palm. My pulse wasn't just pounding. It was roaring in my ears. Like some primal instinct was screaming at me. This was it. I reached room 814 and exhaled slowly. If I was wrong, I'd look like a lunatic. If I was right, I didn't let myself think about that. I slid the keycard in. Beep. The green light blinked. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. The first thing that hit me was the smell. That distinct mix of cologne, sweat, and something I couldn't let my brain name just yet. The kind of smell that didn't belong in a room my wife was supposed to be alone in. The room was dimly lit, just the bedside lamp on. And there, tangled up in the pristine white hotel sheets, was Emily, and some guy. I didn't even register his face at first. I was too busy staring at her. My wife, the mother of my children. Lying there in nothing but a sheet barely covering her. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second, there was something terrifying in them. Not guilt, not shame, annoyance, like I was the problem, like my very presence was an inconvenience. Then, in a flash, her face transformed. She gasped, scrambling upright. Pulling the sheets up around her like that made any difference. Jason, she stammered, eyes wide. The guy next to her moved, groggy. He had no idea what was happening yet. I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me. Who's he? My voice came out eerily calm. Emily looked between me and him, like she was calculating her next move. And then she had the audacity to say, Jason, this isn't what it looks like. I barked out a laugh, a sharp, humorless sound that made the guy in the bed finally snap awake. He blinked up at me, confused. Then his face drained of color. Good. I turned my gaze back to my wife. Really? I asked, my voice still deceptively calm. Because it looks like you're naked in a hotel bed with another man. She swallowed hard. I can explain. I crossed my arms. Then explain. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then she sighed, rubbing her temples like I was giving her a headache. Jason, you're overreacting, she said, her voice suddenly firm. It's not a big deal. Not big deal. I felt something in my chest snap. The guy in bed, who finally had the sense to start pulling on his pants, cleared his throat. Maybe I should. Sit. The F*** down. Asterisk, I growled. He froze. Emily rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. This is so typical. She muttered under her breath. You always blow things out of proportion. I stared at her stunned. Emily, I said slowly, I flew here with our kids to surprise you. Lily and Jake are down the hall thinking their mom is working hard on a business trip. She flinched at that, just for a second. Then her expression hardened again. Jason, you don't understand. No, I think I understand perfectly. Silence stretched between us. And then, finally, the guy spoke. Look, man, he said, holding his hands up. I had no idea she was married. Emily whipped around to him. Ryan, shut up. But the damage was done. I smiled, slow and cold. So, Ryan, I said, you thought she was single? Ryan swallowed. Yeah, I mean, she never mentioned a husband. Or kids. Emily's face went pale. I turned back to her, my jaw tightening. Wow. Not even a mention of US. Huh. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. You know what, Emily? I said, my voice dropping into something dangerously quiet. You're right. I don't understand. I took a step closer. So why don't you enlighten me? Her lips parted, but she had nothing to say. Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time since I stepped into this room. She looked trapped. Her eyes darted to Ryan, then back to me, then to the floor like she was trying to rewire reality in her favor. I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to sit in the mess she made. Then finally she spoke. Jason, please, she whispered. It's not what you think. I laughed. Quiet, dangerous laugh. Oh, because I think my wife is having a whole-ass affair in a hotel room while I'm raising our kids back home. And that looks about right to me. Her lips trembled. But then she did something that nearly broke me. She softened her voice, tilted her head slightly, and reached for me, like I was the one being unreasonable. Jason, I made a mistake, she said, her fingers brushing my wrist. But it's not what you think. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Emily, I should probably go. Shut up, Ryan. She snapped her head toward him so fast that even I flinched. I watched her. Watched the way her body tensed, the way she gritted her teeth. She wasn't ashamed. She was angry that she got caught. I took a step back, shaking my head. You know what? Just tell me the truth, Emily. For once. How long has this been going on? She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. But it was long enough. Ryan exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. Oh, me. He muttered under his breath. That long, huh? I said, watching her closely. She snapped. Why does it matter? She burst out. Jason, seriously? Why are you making this into some giant betrayal? I felt my whole body go cold. Some giant betrayal? I repeated, voice hollow. Emily groaned, running a hand through her hair like I was the frustrating one. Jason, you're a great dad. Okay? You're a great husband. You work hard. But I needed. She stopped herself, squeezing her eyes shut. I took a slow, deliberate step forward. Say it. She didn't. So I did. You needed something else. She winced, but she didn't deny it. I sucked in a deep breath, trying to control the fire climbing up my throat. Emily, our kids are literally down the hall right now. Lily was so excited to see you she couldn't stop bouncing the whole plane ride. And Jake? Jesus. Jake actually put down his phone for more than 10 seconds just to come surprise you. She looked away. You weren't supposed to come, she muttered. My stomach dropped. I laughed. A choked, disbelieving laugh. Oh my God. You were hoping to get away with it. You were just gonna come home, kiss our kids goodnight, and climb into our bed like nothing happened. She flinched. And then, like some demon had possessed her, she lifted her chin and said the worst thing she could have ever said. You should have told me you were coming, Jason. The room tilted. Ryan muttered something under his breath, grabbing his bag. Yeah, I'm out. He bolted for the door like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. I didn't even look at him, because my entire world had just shifted on its axis. Are you? My voice cracked. I swallowed. Are you saying this is my fault? She crossed her arms, her face unreadable. I'm saying if you had told me, this wouldn't have happened. Something inside me snapped. I took a slow, shuddering breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Emily, this didn't happen because I showed up. This happened because you made a choice. She scoffed. Oh, please, like you haven't been emotionally checked out for years. That one hit me hard. I took a step back. What the hell are you talking about? She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. Jason, don't act like you're perfect, she said. Like we were discussing something as small as forgetting to take the trash out. You barely even look at me anymore. You're always working, always with the kids. And she exhaled sharply. I just needed to feel like a woman again. I stared at her. I waited for the regret, for the realization to sink in. But she just stood there, her face set in stone. Like I was supposed to just accept that. Like I was supposed to understand. And that's when I knew. There was nothing left to save. Something inside me shattered. Not in an explosive way. Not in a way that made me want to yell or throw something or punch a hole through the wall. No, it was the kind of break that left you feeling eerily calm. The kind that turned your soul to ice. I stared at my wife. This woman I had built a life with, raised children with, and I realized she wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was bored. I let out a breath, slow and steady, like I was grounding myself before stepping into a fight I knew I was about to win. Okay, I said. Emily blinked. Okay, what? Okay? I repeated, tilting my head. I get it now. She shifted her weight, crossing her arms tighter over herself. Jason, don't do this dramatic. You're not in love with me anymore. I interrupted. Her lips parted. I took a slow step forward. You haven't been in love with me for a long time. Have you? Emily's jaw tightened. That's not. Just answer the damn question. She hesitated. Then, with a shrug so casual it made my skin crawl, she said, I don't know. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because what else was there to do? Wow. I ran a hand down my face. You don't know. Her expression turned annoyed again. Like I was dragging this out for too long. Jason, I didn't plan for this to happen, she said. Like that made it better. It felt good to be wanted. I stared at her. You think I don't want you? She rolled her eyes. Not in the same way. Not like before. You mean not like a stranger in a hotel bed? She flinched. That's not fair. I snapped. Fair. My voice thundered through the room. Oh, I'm sorry, Emily. Is this situation not fair to you? Is this hard for you? She had the nerve to look away. You want to feel like a woman again? I scoffed. Try feeling like a husband who just found out his wife has been sneaking off to hotel rooms with random men while his kids beg for her attention back home. She let out a slow breath, pressing her fingers to her temples like I was giving her a headache. And that's when I knew. She wasn't listening. She wasn't processing. She was just waiting for me to shut up. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman who used to cry when we watched sad movies. Who used to leave little notes in my lunchbox before work. Who used to laugh so hard she couldn't breathe when Jake would tell his dumb little jokes at dinner. She wasn't that person anymore. Or maybe she was, and I just wasn't worth it to her anymore. Either way, I was done. I turned toward the door. Emily stiffened. Where are you going? I paused, glancing over my shoulder. To our kids. The ones you apparently forgot existed while you were busy. Feeling like a woman again. Her face twisted in something ugly. Don't be dramatic, Jason. I laughed under my breath. You haven't seen dramatic yet. Then I walked out the door and left her there. Standing in the wreckage of everything she destroyed, I walked down the hotel hallway. My legs moving like they weren't even mine. My body felt heavy, like someone had tied bricks to my shoulders. But my mind was screaming at me to keep going. Because just down the hall in room 810, my kids were waiting. Lily was probably sitting cross-legged on the bed, giggling at some cartoon, still bouncing with excitement over the surprise we had planned. Jake was probably halfway through a burger he ordered from room service, already texting his friends about how Chicago is kind of sick. Actually, they had no idea. No idea that their mother had just torn our family in half in a stupid, dimly lit hotel room with some guy named Ryan. No idea that the dad who walked out that door wasn't the same man anymore. I stopped in front of our door, 814 to 810, just 4 rooms apart. For doors down, their mother was probably still sitting in bed, running her hands through her hair, annoyed at me. Not guilty, not heartbroken, just annoyed. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. Then, finally, I swiped the keycard. Beep, green light, the door opened, and I barely had time to step inside before Lily came flying at me. Daddy, did you see her? She squealed, hugging my waist. Was she so happy? Did she cry? The lump in my throat nearly choked me. I forced a smile, swallowing the bile in my throat. Not yet, baby, I murmured, running a hand through her soft curls. She was busy. We'll see her in the morning. Okay? Her little face scrunched in confusion. Oh, okay. But she was so trusting, so pure, that she just nodded and let it go. Jake was lying on his bed, one arm behind his head, half watching TV. So, what's the plan? He asked, popping a fry into his mouth. My mind blanked. Plan? There was no plan anymore. I was standing in this room, pretending like everything was fine, while their mother was probably scrambling for excuses just 4 doors away. I had to get them out of here. You guys want to do something fun? I said suddenly, forcing my voice into something light, normal, like, I don't know, get some ice cream, walk around the city a little before bed. Lily gasped like I just told her she won the lottery. Yes. Jake raised an eyebrow but shrugged. Yeah, sure. Why not? Cool. I grabbed my wallet, stuffing it into my jacket. Let's go then. Lily scrambled for her shoes. Jake pocketed his phone, and I took one last look around the room. The place I thought was just a fun family trip an hour ago. Before I stepped out, making sure to leave everything behind, because we weren't coming back. We stepped out of the hotel, and the night air hit me like a shock to the system. Crisp, cool, real. I needed that, because nothing else felt real anymore. Lily grabbed my hand, swinging our arms as we walked down the busy Chicago sidewalk. Jake stuffed his hands into his hoodie pocket, earbuds dangling around his neck, glancing around like he was actually enjoying this. And me? I was just trying to breathe, trying to ignore the weight of the phone in my pocket, waiting for the inevitable call or text from her, trying to push down the rage sitting in my gut like burning coals, trying to act normal, because they couldn't know. Not yet. Can I get 2 scoops? Lily asked, practically skipping beside me. I forced a smile. You can get 3. Her whole face lit up. Best night ever. Jake snorted. Dad's in a good mood. We should take advantage before he realizes we're out past bedtime. They had no idea. We found a small ice cream shop. Neon lights glowing against the dark streets. The smell of waffle cones and sugar hit me like a memory from a lifetime ago. When things were simple, when a surprise trip meant happiness, not disaster, we ordered. Lily got rainbow sprinkles. Jake got chocolate fudge. I got something, I didn't even know what. I just needed to keep moving. Keep the night from collapsing in on itself. We sat at a little table by the window, and for a while it almost felt normal. Lily talked about school. Jake made fun of the way she still colored outside the lines. I nodded, laughed when I was supposed to, took bites of my ice cream that tasted like nothing. And then, my phone buzzed. I knew who it was before I even looked. My stomach twisted as I pulled it out. One new message. Emily, Jason, where are you? I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the screen. And then, I turned the phone off and slid it back into my pocket, because she didn't get to ask that. Not after what she did. Hey, Dad. Jake's voice pulled me back. I looked up. Yeah. He narrowed his eyes at me. Too smart for his own good. You okay? I hesitated. Then finally I smiled, a real one this time. Yeah, buddy, I said, glancing between him and Lily. I'm perfect, because for the first time all night, I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about us, and how I was going to get my kids the hell away from her. By the time we got back to the hotel, I had made up my mind. We weren't staying. I didn't care that our luggage was still in the room. I didn't care that we had technically booked the trip for 2 more nights. I was getting my kids out of this mess before it touched them. All right, guys, I said, forcing my voice into something casual as we stepped into the elevator. Change of plans. We're heading home tonight. Lily guessed. What? But we just got here. Jake furrowed his brows. Why? What about Mom? I exhaled slowly. Something came up. Jake stared at me. He wasn't stupid. He knew something was off. But Lily was still too young to see the cracks in my voice, and I needed to keep it that way. But Daddy, she whined, her lower lip jutting out. We didn't even get to surprise her yet. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I know, baby, but we'll see her when we get home. Okay? The elevator dinged. Our floor. We stepped out, heading toward our room. Just keep moving. Keep them distracted. But the moment we turned the corner, Emily was there, standing right outside our room, arms crossed, waiting. Lily lit up. "Mommy." She ran toward her. But I caught her by the shoulders just before she reached her. "Go inside, Lil," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Jake, take her." Jake hesitated, glancing between me and Emily. He knew something was wrong, but finally he nodded. "Come on, Lil." "But now?" I said, my eyes never leaving Emily's. Lily pouted, but she followed Jake inside. The door shut behind them, and just like that it was just us. Emily let out a sharp exhale. "What the hell, Jason?" I stayed silent, just watched her. She looked disheveled, hair messy, eyes sharp, like she had been pacing ever since I left her in that room with Ryan. "Good," she scoffed. "Oh, so now you're not talking? That's real mature." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want, Emily?" She threw her arms up. "I want to talk. You just stormed out like a lunatic, took our kids, and disappeared. Do you have any idea how that looks?" I laughed, a quiet, bitter sound. "Oh, I'm sorry. Does it look bad for you, Emily? Does it look like maybe you're a terrible wife and mother? 'Cause guess what? You are." Her face twisted. "Jason, lower your voice. Or what?" I stepped closer, towering over her. "You don't get to tell me what to do anymore." She flinched. For the first time, real fear flashed in her eyes. Good. She should be afraid. Not of me hurting her, but of what came next. Because I wasn't just mad. I was done. "Jason." She tried again, softer this time. "Please, let's go inside and talk." I shook my head. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is." Her voice cracked. "This is our family, Jason." I let the silence stretch, let her squirm in it. Then, finally, I said the words I knew would break her. "You should have thought about that before you got into bed with another man." Her face crumbled. For the first time all night, she looked like she actually felt it, like she finally understood what she had destroyed. But it was too late. I pulled my room key from my pocket, opened the door, and stepped inside. Before I shut it, I turned back to her one last time. "I'll be filing for divorce when we get home." Then I closed the door in her face. The moment the door clicked shut, I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. My hands were shaking. My jaw was so tight it ached. But my mind, clear. This was happening. I was done. And there was no coming back from it. "Who was that?" Lily asked from the bed, her little legs swinging over the edge. I turned, forcing a smile. "Just someone from the hotel, baby." Jake didn't buy it. He was sitting against the headboard, arms crossed, watching me. "Was it Mom?" he asked flatly. I hesitated. Lying to Lily was one thing. She was too young to understand any of this. But Jake, he saw too much. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. "Yeah." His expression didn't change. "You guys fought. It wasn't a question." I exhaled. "We just had a talk." He stared at me for a long second. Then, quietly, he said, "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" Felt like a punch to the ribs. Lily froze, her big, innocent eyes darting between us. "Wait, what?" "Damn it, Jake." I crouched in front of them, choosing my words carefully. "Listen," I said softly. "Mom and I are working through some things, but no matter what happens, we both love you. Okay?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "But I don't want you to break up." My heart shattered. I pulled her into my arms, hugging her tight. "Oh, baby girl," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "It's gonna be okay. I promise." Over her shoulder, I met Jake's gaze. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He just looked tired. And in that moment I knew. He already understood. He knew things weren't fixable. He just wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Lily sniffled against my shirt. "Can we just go home now?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yeah, baby, we're going home." Jake nodded. "Good." And just like that, it was decided. We were leaving. I grabbed my phone and booked the earliest flight out. One way, no return. Because we weren't coming back. Not to this hotel. Not to this city. Not to her. By the time we reached the airport, The weight on my chest had settled into something cold, heavy, but steady. It was over. No more pretending. No more pushing through the lies. No more waiting for Emily to come home only to feel like a ghost in my own marriage. The only thing that mattered now was getting them out. My kids. Lily was half asleep against my side as we sat at the gate. Her little fingers still curled around my sleeve like she was afraid I'd disappear. Jake had his hood up, scrolling through his phone, but I could tell he wasn't really looking at anything. He was processing, thinking. I didn't check my phone. Not once. I knew Emily was texting, calling, probably spiraling, but she wasn't my problem anymore. Do you think Mom's gonna come home after us? Lily mumbled, voice thick with sleep. I forced my fingers to unclench. I don't know, baby. She yawned, rubbing her eyes. I hope she does. I didn't answer, because I couldn't lie to her. Jake, on the other hand, snorted under his breath. She won't. I shot him a warning look, but he just shook his head. She didn't care we were here, Dad. She didn't even ask to see us. His voice was quiet, but sharp. She only wanted to talk to you. That says enough. I winced, because he was right. Emily hadn't fought to see them. Hadn't called me begging to hug Lily one last time, to apologize to Jake, to explain herself. She had only wanted to control the situation. And when she couldn't, she let them leave, without even a goodbye. Lily blinked up at me, confused. Mommy still loves us though, right? My throat closed up. Of course she does, I murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She always will, and maybe that was true. Maybe Emily did love them in her own way. But love wasn't enough, because if it was, we wouldn't be sitting here waiting for a flight back home, without her. A flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom. Our plane was boarding. Come on, I said, standing and grabbing Lily's small backpack. Let's go home. Jake didn't say anything, just nodded. And as we walked toward that plane, something in me felt lighter, because for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't just leaving Emily behind. I was taking my life back. The flight was quiet. Lily curled up against my side, her tiny body rising and falling in deep, innocent sleep. Jake had his earbuds in, staring out the window. But I could tell he wasn't listening to anything, just watching the dark sky stretch out over the clouds. And me? I sat there, staring at the seat in front of me, running through every moment of the last 24 hours like I was watching a movie I never wanted to see again. The way Emily's face twisted in annoyance when I caught her. The way she made me feel like it was my fault. The way she let us leave without even saying goodbye to her kids. I clenched my fists, then forced them to relax. It didn't matter anymore. We were going home. But the problem was, home wasn't home anymore. The moment we stepped off that plane, everything was different. We landed in the early morning. The sky still tinged with gray as I loaded the kids into the car. The drive back felt too quiet, like even the world knew something was broken. When we pulled into the driveway, Lily stretched and let out a sleepy yawn. Mom's still at the hotel, right? Jake shot me a look in the rearview mirror, waiting for me to answer. I took a slow breath. Yeah, baby. She nodded, satisfied. Okay, I'm gonna make her a card for when she gets home. Jake looked away, didn't say anything. I unlocked the front door, and the moment we stepped inside, the emptiness hit me like a truck. The air was still, too still, like the house knew Emily wasn't coming back. Lily kicked off her shoes and ran to the living room, already rummaging for crayons. Jake walked in slower, his eyes scanning the space like he was seeing it for the first time. I dropped my bag by the door, exhaling. And then, before I could stop myself, my eyes flicked to the kitchen counter, where Emily's coffee mug still sat from the morning she left, cold, untouched, a reminder of the life we had before I knew the truth. Jake must have followed my gaze because he scoffed under his breath. Guess you don't have to make her coffee anymore. I swallowed hard. Jake, it's fine, he muttered, walking toward the stairs. I'm just gonna go to my room. I let him go. Because what was I supposed to say? That it wasn't fine? That I wished things were different? That I wished, against all logic, that Emily had just been a bitter liar? I closed my eyes for a second, ran a hand over my face, and sighed. Then I turned to Lily, who was already scribbling furiously on a piece of paper. "Daddy, how do you spell love?" My throat tightened. I crouched beside her, brushing a curl from her face. "Love, baby." She grinned, carefully writing each letter in big, uneven handwriting. "Lovey." And underneath it, she wrote MOM. I had to look away, because I couldn't do this right now. Not when my daughter still believed her mother was coming back. Not when I wasn't sure how to tell her the truth. Not when I wasn't even sure what home was supposed to be anymore. The house was quiet, too quiet. Jake was in his room, door shut, probably texting his friends about how his family had just exploded overnight. Lily was still at the kitchen table, tongue sticking out in concentration as she carefully colored in the heart she had drawn next to the word mom. And me? I was just standing there, staring at my daughter's perfect little handwriting, wondering how the hell I was supposed to tell her that her mother had already walked out of this family long before I caught her in that hotel room. I pulled out my phone. No new messages. Emily had given up. No more texts. No more calls. Not even a fake excuse. I don't know why that hit me harder than anything else. I had spent years choosing her, choosing our marriage, choosing our family. And the moment she realized she couldn't talk her way out of this, she stopped choosing us altogether. "Daddy." Lily's soft voice snapped me back. I looked down. Her big, round eyes blinked up at me, full of trust. "When's mommy coming home?" My chest felt like it was caving in. How do you tell a 6-year-old the truth? How do you tell her that the woman who tucked her in at night, who kissed her boo-boos, who promised she would always be there, wasn't coming back? You don't. Not like that. I crouched beside her, brushing a hand over her hair. "Mommy's gonna be away for a while, baby." She frowned. "Why?" I swallowed hard. "Because grown-ups don't always get things right. And sometimes when they make mistakes, they have to go figure things out on their own." She considered that, her little fingers tracing over the heart she had drawn. "But she still loves me, right?" My breath hitched. I forced a smile. "She'll always love you." It wasn't the full truth, but it was her truth. The one she needed. The one she'd hold on to until she was old enough to understand the real version. She beamed. "Okay. Then I'll save this for her when she gets back." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, because she didn't know. She didn't know that the card she just made, it would sit on the counter for days, weeks, months. She didn't know that every morning, she'd wake up and run downstairs, expecting to see her mom drinking coffee at the table. She didn't know that one day, she'd stop asking. That one day, she'd forget she ever made this card at all. And that was the part that broke me the most. Because no matter how much I hated Emily for what she did, I hated that she could still break our daughter's heart without even being here.